Today I'm actually having a live chat with Matt Frazier of Meat Athlete. So let me add him right now. Sorry. So Matt, as you may already know, is the founder of Meat Athlete, and today I wanted, hello everybody who's joining, to chat about the concept of picking yourself, which I think is good to be available. Oh,
hey.
This is great. Thank you very much for being here.
You're welcome. Hang on, I'm having trouble with hearing and getting my camera set here. It's always a surprise when it's...
Get your plants in shot.
What's that?
Get your plants in shot.
Yeah, right, exactly. I do have plants in my shot. Fake plants, anyway. You know what? Just 1 second. I think I locked my dog in the bathroom, which is never good.
You deal with it. And I'm just getting a spam call, so it's all happening.
Sorry about that. I closed the door and locked her in there. All right, can you hear me okay? Because I don't have headphones in because I have power in, but I've had problems in the past.
I can hear you fine.
Okay, great.
So
Good.
if anybody has any problems hearing, or if you get an echo, please say in the chat and we'll fix it, hopefully. So Matt, for people who don't know you, I'm a long-time fan of Meat Athlete. I'm just gonna say.
Thank you.
But by the way, you're mouse Matt. I use this book as my mouse mat.
Oh yeah, good.
Anyway,
Better than holding up a couch leg or something, right?
No, just as a mouse mat. For those of you who don't know you, for those of us who don't know you, could you give us a bit of an intro to your journey with veganism and creating your own business?
Sure. So it goes back. Well, I mean, the vegan journey goes back much longer, but it was 2009 when I launched my site, but that only happened as the result of a bunch of time I was trying to train to qualify for the Boston Marathon was my goal, and I had started out as a very, very slow marathoner and missed that qualifying time by like 100 minutes. And so I kind of set to work on achieving that goal, and it ultimately took 7 years. And the final step of it for me was to actually just go vegetarian. I wasn't vegan yet, but went vegetarian. I didn't really expect it to be a performance enhancing change. I just did it because I felt like it was right for me. And I started looking around for information. I was actually worried that it was going to kind of mess up these plans of mine to eventually get to Boston. And so I started looking around for information. Again, this was 2009, so the internet was not what it is now. And there really wasn't very much that I thought was any good or helpful to me. A lot of it was like coming from an ethical point of view, which like resonated with me in some way, but it wasn't what I was looking for as far as like confidence that this would actually work for running, be good for long-term health. And I was looking for that kind of information and just couldn't find anything that was like presented in the way that would have resonated for me. And so I thought I would just start my own thing. I called it Meat Athlete, and just start blogging. Like really in the beginning, it was just writing the recipes I was doing. I was by no means an expert in this stuff. It was like a big experiment, and I was just documenting the experiment with this blog, meeting readers, getting little chances to interview people who were, who I started to discover who were doing this already. And so, yeah, it just took off that way. I didn't have any real big business model in mind. It was just this fun experiment, like a kind of a distraction from, I was in grad school for math at the time. And, just thought this would be a fun thing to do. So eventually I felt like, well, maybe I could sell t-shirts for this thing one day. That if people felt like they were part of this Meat Athlete community, or even if they didn't, but just liked the phrase, they could buy t-shirts. So I got some t-shirts printed up, sold them like at cost for the first few batches of them. And then eventually, once I actually did qualify for Boston, 6 months after that, it was sort of a shift, and people started, I think, wanting to know how I did it, more than just like following along with this sort of foodie blog experiment. So that's when I got the idea to start writing like digital content and training plans and, run your first marathon on a plant-based diet kind of stuff. And then, yeah, it just took off from there. You saw it led to book deals and podcasts, lots of speaking around different places. And then in 2017, this is now like 9 years after the blog had started, or 8, I guess, started a supplement company that's called Complement. We sell a whole lot of different supplements, not just for athletes, but for plant-based people. that are basically the products that I kind of wish my family had, we've gradually made. So that's kind of a cool thing to get to do as well. So that's where it is now. I mean, I certainly can go into much more detail about any of it, but that's the overview without taking 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I kind of want to center this conversation a bit on this idea that you mentioned before of picking yourself. So would you like to kind of explain what you understand by that?
Yeah, sure. So there's I'm hesitant to say marketing. He is a marketer, but really he's so much more than that. For me, I think of him as like almost a personal development kind of I don't know, coach, guide. His name's Seth Godin. He's very popular in the U.S. among business people and marketers. I'm not sure about other places, but he has this great phrase where he talks about, I think that the line was, stop waiting to be picked, pick yourself. And what he means by waiting to be picked is that, like, really, I mean, up until 15 years ago, if you wanted to be successful at like anything that was kind of a unique, gift that you wanted to share, your talent, your ability to, make a show, write a book, all these kind of different things that were like, you want to put yourself out there and do something. There was this idea that you had to be picked by someone, that there were these gatekeepers in place, basically, like the big 3 TV networks or the 5, big major music record labels in the US anyway. And if they didn't pick you, if they didn't discover you somehow, then you weren't going to ever be recognized. And that has changed so much because of the internet that we don't need to wait around anymore to be picked. But a lot of people still have this mindset. We still have this thing that, like, if we just catch that lucky break and have lunch with the CEO or whatever, and somehow we just get, they just discover us, then we'll make it. But his whole thing, this pick yourself idea, is that there's no reason anymore to wait around. It's you pick yourself in the beginning and you just start doing your thing, and you find some sort of medium online. There's plenty of them to start publishing or recording live videos or putting your music out. And there are communities like in place now to help find stuff. So, like, there's no reason to wait around to be picked. Like, the mindset should be, when you're ready to do something, you just start doing it. You just start picking yourself. Now, that's not easy. I mean, it takes certainly some courage and getting over these fears. It'd be a lot more fun or a lot more safer feeling if someone had already picked you and said, hey, you're it. But, it's really a very empowering idea once you can embrace it. And it's hard work. You need to consistently keep on showing up, for sure, as you know. But I don't know. To me, it's just amazingly empowering to think about, like, that we all have a printing press basically in our laptop now, and a music studio. I mean, all these things, we just have them now. We can just start. We don't need someone to tell us it's okay. That's pretty much what it is.
That's much better explained than I could explain. In that kind of vein, I haven't heard you talk about this much, but you mentioned earlier that you were in grad school. What was it like quitting a maths PhD to kind of focus on a blog, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a big leap, because at that point I had my blog had been around for 2 years. And so I had, for me, seen the signs that said this can be something much bigger than just a blog. This can be something that supports me and is, my career, basically. People around me, though, I don't think saw that. I mean, I've been thinking about it every day for 2 years. Every time I got a new link from a big site or got a chance to do something, or an email from a book agent who said, hey, like, let's talk. Those things to me meant, like, they were just evidence that this is working. And this is, like, I could just see the potential of it being 10 or 100 times what it is now. But other people around you don't see that because they're not immersed in it. So that was the hardest part, I think, just sort of trying to translate my enthusiasm for this into something that other people could kind of get behind. Because, I mean, even now, to say I'm starting a blog or I'm writing a blog and that's going to become my job, that's, people just don't really believe that. And certainly not back then, because people weren't earning livings not very often anyway.
Influencers then.
What's that? Say it again.
Influencers weren't really a thing then.
Right. Yeah, there was no influencers. Right. Exactly. It wasn't a job to be an influencer. So I mean, that was hard. I would say for me personally, like, it really wasn't a risky decision. Like, I could just tell. I had gotten a master's degree, and I had now been spending like 3 years working to get the PhD. And I think ultimately, like, for me, that was kind of, I don't want to say it was a form of procrastination, but it was definitely there's always this thing, like, if I get more education, then I'll come out, and then I'll be ready. Then no one can say no to me or whatever. And I assumed that I would eventually start a business, and I figured it would be with that, and I figured it would be with the help of a PhD. And, you know, like I said, almost this idea of being picked, like this thing that says, okay, it's okay that I'm doing this because I have a PhD. And so but once the blog started taking off and I started to see all this potential, like that was all I could think about. So it really, and I was like in the back of classes at that point, writing blog posts some days. Like I just kind of, I did the bare minimum with school and it was fine, but I was never going to get my degree that way. Because once you get to that part of a PhD, it's just all about you have to do the work, write the dissertation. And so I could just tell it just wasn't going to happen because I was so focused on this other thing. So for me, it was a no-brainer, but I think it took family a little longer to get on board for sure. Not everyone. I think my mom, who I think is here, she was super supportive from the beginning. She always was. But, you know, it just, for other people, it takes some work.
I think my mom's here too.
Okay, awesome. See, there we go.
Yeah, generally there's a few people live and then lots of people catch it up later on. Anyway, what I was going to say is, so as I said, I've been listening to Meat Athlete for a while, and I think, I mean, this is just my perspective. I think what lots of people like is your chats with Doug at the beginning, kind of about nothing, kind of sometimes they were about esports and various other topics that weren't necessarily related. But so you've obviously taken people on board in the Meat Athlete team and expanded. You said complement, there's the books and all that. Which of those kind of steps were the biggest leap of faith, do you think?
Not the books. The books were easy enough. That was basically going back to the pick yourself idea. Like, you know, I actually got picked at that point because once you have picked yourself, the irony is it becomes tremendously easier to get picked. Then you get noticed. So that felt comfortable and easy because people, you know, I felt like the publisher was here, they had my back. You know, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I would say the hardest part for me, I guess, is this leap of faith. Like making it become a team that wasn't me anymore. That was hard because the beginning, those first few years, it was only me. I had a little bit of help. My sister helped out some, and I hired a woman named Susan who also helped with some of the writing. And so like that much where I was just sort of in charge and I could see exactly what everybody was doing. And it was still about me. Like I was the sort of front and center person. And that was actually motivating. I didn't actually expect that was why I was getting into it. But it turned out to be like really fun when people are super into you and they want to line up at a book tour and get their book signed on. Like it was awesome. I loved it, but it kind of became something where I realized it was not healthy. Like it was just too easy when that's such a big driver, a big motivator. It's just way too easy to compare yourself to other people and say, well, look how they're doing. And there's always going to be somebody who's doing what you're doing, but doing it louder or better or whatever. Or at least you can convince yourself that they are. And so for me, like that became something that was a very destructive force, I think. And I recognized that it was going to mess things up. So I think probably around 2015, maybe 16, I kind of like made this conscious decision that I was no longer going to let people be depending on me to write the content and do stuff. And we're going to start having a lot more guest content. I stopped doing the podcast for a little while and we just had lots of different voices coming in there. And that was such a weird struggle and hard to get right. But finally now, like and launching the whole separate business really helped because it was like, you know, we can make that business not be based on my personality at all. It's sort of tangentially related, but it's not a Matt Frazier thing. It's just a company. And so we have a whole team now of like 12 or 13 people, and they do all this work. And it's when I think about where I am now with like, you know, having let go of so much control of things, because I can't control what everybody does, obviously. And I compare that to where I was even, you know, 5 or 6 years ago. Like it's such a huge difference. So I would say that's one of the hardest parts of this whole thing was getting across that void. And there was definitely some periods in there where like I felt very, very purposeless and like kind of depressed almost, like because it was like I thought I had always wanted that, like not outsource, but automate a business so that it doesn't depend on you anymore, and you don't actually have to show up a lot of days if you don't feel like it that day. And I got to a point where we were basically at that level, and I was surprised to discover that it was like really not fulfilling at all. And I was like, what am I supposed to do? And like, what, this thing doesn't depend on me now. It's like, what is my purpose then, if not that? And ultimately, I kind of made my way back into it a good bit. I didn't find a different purpose that was better than that or something. So I don't know if that's a leap of faith, but it was definitely the hardest, biggest, most substantial challenge after the very initial getting something new off the ground.
Brilliant. Yeah, so congrats on the book as well.
Oh, thank you.
New York Times bestseller. Could you, I know that you've shared a bit about this, but could you tell us a bit about what it takes to be a New York Times bestseller, both like over the years that you've been kind of building up to it, but also the madness in the few weeks around the book coming out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still struck by just how hard it is to get, unless you get some huge confluence of factors and luck and it's just all the right thing, or you become a cultural sensation and it just hits. I mean, there are those people for sure, and their books go to number one on the list and they stay there for years. But it's really, really hard, and I honestly don't think, like, I kind of wish it weren't my goal for a lot of years, because it was from the beginning. The first book I wrote, I was hoping it would hit that list, and it didn't. It really didn't get close, even though it was successful in the publisher's eyes and mine. The second book, like, I really had a good sense of what needed to happen and the numbers needed to hit, and I did pretty much everything right, I thought. But then the publisher, it was still kind of a small publisher, ran out of copies the day before the book released. So we had all this great stuff. I think it hit number 35 on Amazon, which 2017, relatively small blog still. To get to that point was amazing, and I was like, wow, this might be it. And then they ran out, which now, like, with time, I've realized that's my fault too. I can't blame them for that. That's that I didn't wasn't aware enough to say how many copies do we have? Do we actually have enough going? Like, is everyone on the same page with that this is the goal? So after that, then I felt like I kind of wanted to give up on it. And I also kind of felt like, just like with the Boston Marathon thing, where I missed it by so much, that it was like, I feel like I have to do this, or I'm just never going to be able to let it go. So finally I was able to, I had a co-author, Robert Cheek, in this, and that helped tremendously, because now we have two platforms to promote to instead of one. Not just two platforms, but we had both been at this. I'd been at it at that point for 12 years. He had been at it, I think, for something like 25, being vegan, and 15 or 20 of those actually doing touring and all this stuff. So we just had so many relationships. So many different people just stepped up to, help us in that last week when it so much mattered. But there's so much to learn about, the process and the committee who decides it and what they're looking for, making sure that there are in-store sales, making sure you have plenty of pre-sales, because they all count during that initial week. Lots and lots of things that you need to do, and any one of those goes wrong, and you won't make it. So it's just, to me, it's too hard and too unlikely of a goal to really be worthwhile. It shouldn't have been a goal, because it's just there, and it's not like the rewards are amazing. Like, it used to just be life-changing to hit that list. Now it's not like the morning show started all calling because we were on that list. It was like, some bookstores for sure are going to be promoting it much more, but just being on the list doesn't automatically sustain you being on the list, which I had assumed that it did. So we were only on it for 1 week, because we had marched with every resource we had to, get people to take action and buy that week. And so it was the next week. It was like, wow, what do we do now? we can tell everyone we're on the list, and that's kind of good. But how many more copies are we going to sell? So it was great, short-lived, but certainly now we can always say that New York Times best-selling author. That's going to help with so many other and has already helped with a lot of other things, including the supplement company. So, like, it's not like it wasn't worth it. It's just we got so lucky to get it. You have to, like, it just takes luck to get it, and I don't think it's a really a worthwhile goal, because it's just it requires so much that's not dependent on you. It's just like, you need the people to ultimately decide to pick you, really, which is not what I am trying to be doing. I don't want to have to be picked. I'd rather be able to pick myself. Last thing I'll say about it, though, is, like, the thing that really allowed it to happen was just the time doing the work for all this time. Like, it felt kind of like in the last few months that it was our work during that time, and that was necessary. But, like, a good example is when I think back to qualifying for Boston, and how when I actually did it, the fitness I was in versus when I actually did it versus when I started, it was just such a night and day difference of, like, the type of runner I was. Like, in hindsight, I was like, wow, of course I had no chance of qualifying that first marathon, even though I didn't know it back then. But I hadn't logged thousands of miles over the course of 7 years. And when you do that, your body changes, and, like, your brain, not just muscles, but, like, your brain learns how to run. Like, you learn to effectively run. Your form gets better. your brain gets better at recruiting muscle. So like for a beginner to go out and run a mile is super hard. And someone who's a long time runner, even if they're way out of shape, it's really easy for them to go run that mile because their body just knows how to do it. And so I equate that to what happened with this. Like the 12 years in between the starting of the blog and the becoming a New York Times bestselling author, like that's what made it happen. It was the showing up all those days, adding to our audience, building trust all that time, so that when finally it happened, like it made sense that it happened, right? It wasn't a fluke. Of course, I mean, not of course, but it happened because we earned it. So I don't know. I think there's a lot, and I'm definitely susceptible to it. This idea that like we're going to make all this change in 6 months or in 1 year, and we set these very short-term goals for ourselves. But a lot of things, they just take time. Not that you shouldn't set those big goals. I think if they don't work in the short term, you've got to be able to step back and take a longer, view of things.
Now, impossible question. If you could have just one of the 2 achievements, would you qualify for Boston or have the bestseller?
Oh my gosh, that's really hard. I think the Boston one. I really do. I mean, that like, I don't know. That's just much more fundamental to like my identity, I think, for some reason than the bestseller thing. I guess because the bestseller thing is like, there's still so much luck involved, right? Like you could do everything I did. You could do all of it. And just if for whatever reason the committee didn't want to pick you, then you didn't make it, and you have to wait till next time and to try again. With Boston, it was entirely up to me. I mean, granted, there are factors that affect race day, but like that was something that I just got, and there wasn't luck involved with any of it. It just took work. So I would say that's something that I think is more meaningful to me for sure in the long term.
And I know you're into the whole personal development thing, as I am.
Mm-hmm.
Have you decided on any goals yet going into 2022, or not so much?
I haven't really, but I've started to think about it, and I really think what I'm gonna do this year, like you may have heard this on the podcast, but like I'm recently not so much into the big exciting like go do this crazy thing, which I used to be all about, and like that motivated me so much. But like I said, like with time, I've kind of, I think, acquired a certain amount of wisdom that is just more like, those things are fun to think about. It's fun to think about doing something crazy in the course of just a year. But like every goal I do, every large goal that I accomplish, it always starts out with set it for a year. Don't do it in that year because it's too much. And then 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years later, look back and realize, hey, I did that last year, and that was actually my big goal 5 years ago. So like, it definitely starts a process for sure. But I just have a lot less faith than I used to that I'm going to make change in such a short time. It just, the things that are big enough to me to be significant like that, they take longer than a year. And so that's hard. It makes them hard as New Year's goals now. But so recently I've really come back to like wanting to just kind of change habits. And I think this next year, I really would like to just spend a lot more time doing the things that really make me happy. I'm at this age, I'm 40 now, and it's not like I feel like I'm getting old, and certain fitness is great and everything, but like I just have a little more appreciation for like life being short. You know people who get sick or die early or whatever, and like it's just not quite like when I was 20. I have this appreciation for like, we don't know how long we have. Like it's really a shame if we spend a year doing things that, or neglecting the things that really make us happy. And I think with the book and all that, and my family moving and lots of other stuff, like I feel like this year I haven't done that many things that when I do them make me happy. Traveling is one, of course, that's been influenced by the COVID thing. But even taking the time to go out to a cafe and read a really good book, not just something I should read for work, I should read for this, but like find a book that I really, really love that just speaks to me. Because I used to do so much of that, and I think that laid a lot of foundation for what I've managed to achieve since then. So really, it's going to be about that. I think my year will be much more about doing things that make me happy, and I don't know what they are yet. I certainly have some fitness goals and things in mind, but no big crazy like change the world goal this year.
I think I'm also moving towards kind of the pushing less and trying to chill out a bit more. But watch this space. We'll see. Easiest or hardest question to finish. if you had to pick one Christmas movie for someone who hates Christmas movies, I'm trying to convince my partner that we should watch one as a family to watch this. What should it be? As I know this is your secret.
Oh, I love
passion.
Christmas movies. Yeah. Okay, in this situation, I think I would. I don't know. I don't know if people will get it. To me, the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I mean, it's just a classic. But you know what? I'd pick Elf. I think for a person who doesn't, that's what I'd pick. Because it's funny and you get it. I feel like Christmas Vacation, if you didn't watch it in the old days, you wouldn't really get why it's so good, maybe. But Elf is very, I don't know, that's still really funny for a lot of people.
I haven't neither of them. So.
Oh my gosh, okay, well, there you go. Perfect, you have two.
There you go. Brilliant. Where can people find you and the book and all that? Can you repeat what the name of the book is?
Yes, the book is The Plant-Based Athlete. I actually have a copy here, you can see it. There you go. With Robert Cheek, my co-author, and that's pretty much anywhere you can find books. In the UK, I don't know. I think Book Depository is typically the place to get books that aren't published abroad.
I got mine on Amazon.
Oh, did you? Okay, good. So yeah, I'm not that familiar with the rules. We don't have a UK deal in place yet where we have a publisher that is specifically for that territory. We've got a bunch of other foreign language deals and things. But anyway, yeah. So Amazon's a great place to go. Most independent bookstores in the U.S. anyway. Barnes & Noble, of course, they'll have it. So that's that. NoMeatAthlete.com is kind of the homepage hub for all the No Meat Athlete kind of stuff. LoveCompliment.com is our supplement company, which I said makes these products that I just make because my family needs them and we make them. And of course, on Instagram, I'm Real Matt Frazier, as you know, but also NoMeatAthlete_official is the brand page there, and that's much bigger and shares a lot of other voices and things as well. So that's it. Oh, and No Meat Athlete Radio, our podcast.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yes.
The podcast. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Matt.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on. These are great questions. It's fun to talk to you.
And Merry Christmas.
You too. Enjoy those movies.
Thank you.
Okay.